today we're going to be test fitting my CSL style trunk. Now in case you've never seen one of these, it's the same basic design as what comes on the car, except rather than having a spoiler stuck on top like this, the spoiler's actually kind of molded into the trunk. I think that they look super clean and it's not a mod that you see every day. Now in case you've never worked with aftermarket body panels, sometimes they fit perfectly and sometimes they don't fit at all. So that's why we have to do a test fit before I waste a bunch of money getting that thing painted. If this ends up fitting and I decide to run it, there are a couple issues that are going to have to be addressed. First of all, the mounting points for the peripherals, like the taillights, are rather flimsy. Now I'm not sure how much that's actually going to matter with the lights installed. I know the lights themselves will add some integrity, but that's just going to have to be something that we test out, and if need be, I can add some reinforcement to those. Another issue is there's a crack about this big along the top side. Now, Keys Motorsports gave this to me when I was in New Jersey last summer. From what I understand, this is a discontinued product. I don't know if the manufacturer is producing them anymore, but they had this unit in their storage room. I said that I wanted it. I brought it home in the back of my car, and it's been shuffled around my basement for the last 8 or 9 months or so. So I don't know at what point it got damaged, but if I decide to use this, that's gonna have to be something that I address. I'm planning to reinforce it with more fiberglass from the inside, and then I'll use like body filler to fill in that crack. But let's throw it on the car and we'll see how well it fits. So I've actually taken this trunk carpeting out once before, and these are my least favorite type of fastener. It's basically a Phillips screw, but they're made out of plastic. So guess what happens when you go to unscrew them? All right, well, we're an hour and a half in and we've got the carpeting out. Yay! That's the joy of filming YouTube videos. But the next step is going to be disconnecting all the wires in here, the tail lights, the trunk actuator, and the backup camera. Then we can get this wiring harness off and we should be able to pull the trunk off from there. Alright, so I took a moment to label all of those wires so that I'll know where to go. You'll have to excuse my handwriting there, but now I'm going to have my lovely assistant help me pull this off the car. Alright, so I put a blanket over my window and I put these little foam blocks. These like came with the new trunk. And my goal today is not to break any glass. Alright, so now for the tedious part of transferring over all those peripherals, and it seems like a lot, especially because I'm going to have to revert it all back to the stock one when I'm done with this video. But remember, the point is to make sure that everything fits, not only how the trunk actually fits on the car, but also all the peripherals like the tail lights, the latch, the little lights. Make sure everything is good and up to my standards before I get this thing painted. Alright, so I've got everything out except for the camera and the little handle that opens the trunk from the outside. They're proving to be a little bit harder than I was expecting. It's basically clipped in on all the sides, but you don't really have a whole lot of room to get your hands in there. So I'm going to get this out, and I'll check back with you guys in just a minute. Alright, so I ran into my first little fitment issue with the little latch handle here. It won't go in with the camera module in. The camera itself is just slightly too fat. So I'm going to take this off and I'm going to try to take off some of the material and see if we can get that to fit in there. Alright, so as you can see, even without being in that little latch housing, there's just like too much plastic on the camera. But I'm thinking I can kind of Dremel this part out a little bit and it should be able to fit. So let's try that. Alright, so one more quick note before I test fit the new trunk. These hinges have like these springs on them to keep tension. That way when you open your trunk, it pops open. But because the new trunk is so much lighter than the original steel one, those springs are going to have way too much tension on them. And so just for the sake of installing this right now, I just took the tension off both of them. That'll help keep these flat as I go to install it. And then once we're ready to actually install it after it's painted, we can mess around with the tension on the springs. People that I talked to said that they'll only keep one of the springs on, which makes sense to me. So we'll figure it out when we get to that point, but let's go ahead and throw that trunk on here. Alright, so Katie and I played around with the fitment a little bit and we got it dialed in to where we wanted. So basically, there's 4 bolts where the trunk bolts onto the hinges, and that has some adjustability built into it. Basically, the entire trunk can shift about 1/4 of an inch in any direction. So if you initially shut your trunk and the fitment is like way off, don't panic, you can still adjust that. And then as far as the tension springs, I did end up using one of those springs on one side, and that does affect the fitment too. So I'd recommend putting the spring on first and then dialing in your fitment from there. And I'm actually really impressed with how this fit. Like I was saying at the beginning of the video, when it comes to like aftermarket body panels, you really don't know until you see it on the car. So I'm pleasantly surprised with how this fits. So the next step is just gonna be fixing that crack on there, and then I'm going to send this off to get painted. Body color, of course. And yeah, look forward to that video in the future. Also, like I was saying at the beginning of the video, Keys Motorsports discontinued this trunk a while ago, so I'm not gonna have any affiliate links or anything like that. You may be able to find one on eBay, but I can't guarantee that it's gonna be the same brand. I don't even know what brand this is. But just in case you find one, I hope that this video helps you figure out how to install it and gives you an idea of what the fitment will be like. But give me a thumbs up if you at least enjoyed hanging out with me today, and I'll see you guys in the next video.